All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everyone today for attending the Flowlink Cipher demonstration. We're very excited about this new program. What is it? It is a cloud-based data hosting and advanced analysis software program. Again, very excited about that. So why did we come up with this program? Well, we talked to a lot of customers out there, gathered a lot of interest as far as what features they were looking for and things like that. One of the common things that we see out there, we have a retiring workforce, but they're very experienced. So the good thing about those people is that they're able to look at data and they're able to make sense out of what's going on in their collection system, as well as the wastewater plant again. So when you look at the newer workforce that's coming into the industry, they're going to be less experienced, obviously. They're younger, but they have more computer savvy. And they are also very much more dependent upon the information and the data. So, but they want software to help them determine some of the what's going on there. Remote data now is more affordable than ever to access. So pushing data, people want data on the cloud. They want web-hosted data. And like all of us, we're doing more with less. We don't have the resources that we had. And we see that a lot in every facet of the world right now. So we have people that are now trying to monitor more locations. They don't have the personnel. The remote access or the cell data, the cloud hosted data, gives them the capability of accomplishing those tasks. So why Cipher? Again, Cipher is a cloud-based platform that is, again, more acceptable and more maintainable than ever before. So now we take a lot of the worry out for the municipality or the flow service provider. We also see a lot of people that are wanting early warning indications. I need to know when my sewer line is going to overflow. What is the capacity I have? And be able to take those proactive actions to prevent very bad things from happening in their system. Need for secure data hosting. We see it all the time now, government agencies becoming targets for hackers, and that security is a very key thing. The other thing we would see in this is pattern analysis. They want the computer software to help give them a better idea what's going on. So I want to look at my normal flow patterns and determine, is everything working like it should? That also lays into machine learning. Now we have to have the machine, or the computer in this case, look at the data, do some predictive analysis. We would need to know when things are happening and what could be happening. So as time moves on, software will be smarter and will be able to, again, help the user know what's going on there. The other thing that Flowlink Cipher does is it takes all the pain and suffering, if you will, from the IT group. So now, instead of having to load software on your computer, you just basically can access the web hosted data, the cloud hosted data. So now your IT guys are not having to go out and upload firmware, software. The meter is going to push data into a cloud-based server. As features become available in the future or fixes, then these will all happen behind the scene without the IT group having to do anything. So again, this is the way of the future, and we are very excited to be on board with this. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over the demonstration part of this to Dennis McGinnis. Dennis is one of our product support specialists and has been around ISCO for many, many years. And so with that, Dennis, take it away.
Okay, well, thanks, Rick. I'm now going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of what Cipher can do. Here is the dashboard where I'd like to start, because it allows us to have a quick synopsis of all of the data from all the sites that we are interested in for any type of project that you might be working on. So on this dashboard, we have come up with new tool settings called gadgets. And we have 3 different gadgets to choose from. We have graphing gadgets, notes, and sites. A real quick laydown of what each one of these do. We'll start off with the site gadget here. The site gadget was basically made so you can create a quick way of viewing the data from a particular given site that you choose from. So by default, it will always go ahead and give you a level, a velocity, and flow rate information on your screen. And as you move your mouse over it, you will notice you have these little spark lines that show up and gives you the instantaneous data for each one of these parameters. In the lower left-hand corner, we have a push time. This tells me the last time this site pushed in, which was 36 minutes ago, as well as what the last voltage reading from the batteries was. So here I got batteries in this site, 11.75. So there's a lot of information on the site gadget right off the bat. Another point I wanted to show you is on this site gadget down here that I added on purpose is this site has not pushed in because it's been pulled for some time. But what I wanted to point out was this little yellow hue around it. The site gadget will also show you alarm conditions. The yellow alarm condition means a site has not pushed in within the given amount of time that is specified for that site. By default, I have these set for an hour. So obviously this one pushed in 36 minutes ago, so no issue there. This one's at 56 minutes. We wait a few more minutes, hasn't pushed in, you'll get a yellow one. But this one hasn't pushed in for 3 months, a week, and 3 days. So that's why we have this little yellow hue. If you have a red hue around it, that shows that you actually have a site alarm. So if you have an alarm condition in the site itself, for instance, you have a threshold of 18 inches and that threshold's been met, that hue will be red. So we do have some alarming viewing on the actual site gadget itself. Moving over to the graph gadget allows us to be more interactive with it. We can change this graph to be whatever we want it to be, unlike the site where we're hard-coded for level, velocities, and flows. And while we can choose which velocity, level, velocity, and flow measurement we want from the site gadget, the graph gadget is really made to be user configurable. So let's say you have rain gauge or you want some battery voltages on the graph, et cetera, built into it. I can go ahead and create a graph down here in analysis, which we'll get to. But inside that graph, then whatever I tell it I want to have displayed, it will then, I can tie that graph to this gadget and all that information will be tied here as well. If I want to go ahead and get further into this graph, I can just double click on this graph, it'll take me there. Or if I want to use the 3 dots, I can go to that graph as well. As you can see, I can also do scatter plots. So I made a graph here with scatter plots and tied that to a graph gadget. So again, the graph gadgets allow us to create graphs to our needs. And here's another really good example that we like to show here. In this particular example, what we've done is we've taken 4 sites, their input voltages, and put them in the same pane. What this allows us to do is monitor this y-axis. If one of these batteries were to drop down to like 9 volts, you would surely see that the one that's dropping to 9 volts there would show up easily. You move your mouse over to the location and you can see which site by the site name there is actually in the 9 volt range. On this particular one, this is actually solar panels, so you can see them charging and discharging. But in a battery situation, if one of these did drop down, you would easily see that, figure out which site it is, and be able to go and address that. There is no limitation to how many units you could put on a particular pane. It does get a little busy when you start getting 10, 12 sites in a single pane. So my suggestion was maybe keep it to 4 or 5, then make maybe multiple panes of site voltages. And finally, we have our note gadget. The note gadget allows us to basically put any type of text that we want inside this gadget. So in this case, I just, as an example, I put the site name and I said, bring spare batteries next time we visit. But this is really not tied to any specific type of information you want in there. You could put in, location information. It's between the house and the big oak tree on 4th and Main. Pretty much any information you want to put in there, it's open season for that. And then finally on the dashboard, I wanted to point out that you can actually have multiple dashboards. By clicking on the dashboard option, you can create more dashboards. I'll switch over to my home dashboard. And basically what we'll have here is a whole nother dashboard with a whole bunch of different information. So the idea here is I can create different dashboards for maybe different watersheds or different projects or different areas or for different customers. So basically the sky's the limit on what you want to do as far as why you want to make different dashboards, but they are available to you there and you can just switch back and forth to the dashboard you want to work with. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the map screen. The map screen allows us to view all of the sites with their GIS information. So that information you put into the system to tell it where that particular meter is located, and it shows up on the graph. As you can see here, I have a lot of green ones, and I have one red one. The red one basically means that this site is an alarm. So you can visibly easily see where all your alarms are at, located on the GIS map. Any site that doesn't have GIS coordinates do show up down here as a warning. This particular database, we have 43 that don't have coordinates put in there. The nice thing about that is also if I click on that button, it shows me the 43 sites that do not have information. So I can jump right into those and add those if I need to. In this case, I'll just hit OK to clear that. On the actual pin in the map, if I click on it, I have these little shortcuts. And these shortcuts allow me to, basically, these are all graphing shortcuts, the first 4. This allows me to create graphs preset to this site. So this very first link, as you notice below it, it says level, flow rate, and velocity from this site. So if I click on that, it's going to jump me to the graph site where it's going to go ahead and pull in that site name and automatically pull in my level, velocity, and flow rate information. So I can jump right into that graph and start creating a graph based upon that information. I can obviously add more information to this, add more panes, input voltage, spectrums, etc. But the idea here is I can manipulate, and then when I get the graph the way I like it, I can just go ahead and save that. Jumping back to the map screen, the other icons, basically this next one is similar, but it's going to open up the graph with just the site selected. It's not going to automatically pull in the level, velocity, flow rate. That way, if I don't necessarily want those to even start with, maybe I just want, you know, pH and rain or something to that effect. I can just jump here. It's going to give me a shortcut to get that site up and running for graph creation. The next one over is for templates. Any templates that you've created, which is actually in the graph screen as well. By clicking on this, it'll give you a list of all your templates that you can choose from to take that site information into that template. Then we've also got the compute data sets. This is a screen that allows us to do statistical functions like min, max, averages to create dry flow and I weather type information. So we'll show that screen later as well. But these are all just shortcuts to get to those screens without having to go navigate through your toolbar to find those screens for that information. And then finally, on this last icon, this goes to the site information, which is where we're going next, actually. So into the site information, it'll give you, well, all the information about that site. So let's go ahead and move on over there, and we'll show you what the site screen looks like. So on the site screen, this shows us every single site that we have in our database. And there's quite a lot of information here. If you look at if you hover over them and you look at the little shortcuts, a lot of these shortcuts are pulled over from the map screen. So they're the exact same ones. I can create a graph with the level, velocity, flow rate. I can create a graph just with the site name selected, my templates, etc. The new icons that we do have added here is we have a tenant icon over here on the far left. If you notice the name at the top here, we have global, etc. Looking through here, you can see I got a demo site here, and I got one called WebTech. The idea of the tenants is I can go ahead and put a user as a tenant. So if I have a user, as an example, that I just want them to be able to view the WebTech site meters, I can go ahead and hit the tenant button, and here's all the different tenants I have available. And then if I assign that site to the WebTech, now anybody who logs in with the WebTech tenant will only get the sites that have WebTech tenants assigned to them. So it's a way of filtering. It's a way of allowing you to have a little more control of what your end user can have access to. And the last part I wanted to show on here was this site icon over here on the far right. And this is the shortcut that actually shows you information about the site itself. So by clicking on that, what I've got is up here in the upper left-hand corner, I've got a little synopsis of the map location, which I can jump to. If I go full screen there, I can hit that and it'll take me to the map screen. You'll notice down here in the attachments, I have all kinds of attachments I can put in here. I can put in engineering documentation, work permit, calibration sheets, photos, videos, you know, pretty much anything you want to attach to that portrays to that site, I can put that in here and it saves it right to the site screen. Over here on the right, I've got multiple tabs under the general tab. I've got the site name. I can input the address, manhole number, the status. The purpose of the status is based upon your license, you can activate and deactivate sites as needed. So as an example, if you have a license for 20 sites, and you're moving 20 sites from one watershed to another, or your study's done in one location, and you want to go ahead and create new site names, you could deactivate this particular site name, in this case, Country Club, and reactivate its license into another site to allow that data to start pushing in. Now, obviously, Country Club information would no longer be available to you in Cipher because you're deactivating it, but it does allow you to move those licenses around so you can use them as needed. The last voltage push is right below that. And then this little window right below this area here where we got the little cogwheel, this actually is the part where I can tell it when I want that threshold for my alarm condition, that yellow hue that showed up around the dashboard. If a site has not pushed in this case within 1 day or 24 hours, I want to have that alarm condition show up. And then if that alarm did fire off for whatever reason, whether it was a site alarm or didn't push in, I can clear it from this screen as well. And then finally, the coordinates at the bottom. This is where I can type in the information so it knows where to put that pin in the map screen. The comment section right below it is basically a notepad. You can put any information in there that you feel that you need to have in there. If there's some place that you have information that you don't see a location, like obviously we have a place for address and manhole number, but if you come up with something else that you want to put in, comments is pretty much just a generic place to put that information. Across the top, we also have events that have appeared in the site. We have the device information, and in this case, this is a signature. It shows me the serial number, software revision, hardware revision, etc. This was a 2100. You see a picture of a 2100 here, as well as its modem and its software, etc. Information that you might find useful when troubleshooting. Under the logs, the log screen will basically just show you any information that came in as far as a site hasn't pushed in or it's been calibrated, etc. Okay, so that is what I have for the site screen. We'll go ahead and move on to the alarms. The alarm screen shows every single alarm that's come into the database. So the type of alarm that showed up, a little bit of details about that type of alarm, when it occurred, when it stopped, and then the site information. The nice thing about this also is that I can filter because there's so much information here. If I want to filter for a particular event type or site, in this case, I can say, let's filter for summary. And let's go ahead and filter for a particular site. Let's go ahead and grab any site alarms for this particular 0WC, and then I hit the filter. And you can see all my 0WC sites that have summary events are now filtered out. I click on the summary event here. I've got a nice little report for my min-max averages for my sensor information. The other thing I want to show you on the sites, on the alarm screen, is the settings button. Now this is pretty cool. The settings button is basically server alarms. So in the past, when we wanted to set alarms up, we had to put that in the meters out in the field. So if you wanted to change that information, you had to either connect to the meter by driving out to the site, directly connecting and changing that information, or possibly waiting for a window to open up so you could call into the site and get that information changed. So you could change those thresholds for those alarms. And maybe a lot of times when you're very first setting up a site for the first time, you really might not know the actual conditions you want those alarms to be set at. So you might be doing a little bit of tweaking to get your settings right. Well, what's really nice about this is by having the power of these servers on the cloud is these servers have the ability to upgrade their hardware as needed. So if there's a large load put on the server by maybe traffic, or in this case, monitoring data, we have the ability to make those servers bigger. So we can add CPUs, we can add RAM, et cetera, to make those make that processing power more available to its needs at the time. So by being able to do that, we can now set up server alarms. And what the server alarms allow us to do is we can set up those thresholds right here at the server. And when that data pushes in, the server is monitoring the data and analyzing that data for those thresholds so it can alarm off of them at the server level. And now if I need to change something, I don't need to go out to the site. I can come right to the screen and tweak that threshold if needed. And then also you can notice you can subscribe or unsubscribe from each one of these type of alarms based upon the user. In this case, I'm logged in on my new user account, and I've opted to only subscribe to this particular alarm and not these other two. So if Rick, as an example, wanted to log in, but he wanted all the alarms, he could log into here and checkbox all of them. And then, of course, he would get alarms for all three of those. Finally, the analysis screen. This is really where all the magic's done. The analysis screen allows us to create our graphs, our tables, our reporting, et cetera. Pretty much anything that the meter can or the software can do for your data analysis stuff is found right here in the screen. And so you have all these graphs that we've created, that we've pre-created, and they're listed here. Now, on the dashboard, where we're talking about the graph gadget, this is where it pulls it from. So if you don't have any graphs made, you won't have any graphs to be able to choose from in your gadget. So when you very first start off, while the site gadget will be available because it's just pulling in site data, level, velocity, flow rate, but it will not be able to pull any graphs because you haven't created any yet. So once you start creating your graphs, they'll be listed here, and then you'll be able to tie those to your dashboard graph gadget. Okay, to start off with, if I want to go ahead and open up one of these pre-existing graphs, I can simply click on it, and it takes me to the graph screen itself. And of course, I have lots of information here, but before we jump the gun, I want to show you how to make a graph, just the graph screen, how you create it for the first time. So short of using the shortcuts under the site and map screen we showed earlier, just by going down here to the lower right-hand corner and clicking the Create New Graph, this is my configure graph screen. This is a lot like the property screen of Flowlink if you're familiar with our Flowlink software. This allows us to choose our site information we want to work with, choose the parameters of data we want to work with, and the date ranges, etc. So if I use the site name, I now have all of the parameters down below. I click on level, I can throw some velocity in there, and I'll go ahead and open a flow rate as well. So now I've opened 2 parameters in one pane, add another one. If I want to change any of these colors, I go right up here at the top. So I have the ability to change colors, line width, display my averages on my legend. I can choose my date range of the data, amount of data I want to work with. One thing I should point out here, because this is a server-based software, all the data for the database is actually on the server. And so that we don't have to pull down, 5 years of data to work with a couple weeks. What we've allowed the user to do is let's choose the data they want to work with, so we don't have to pull down a bunch of unnecessary data from the server to work with. So if I only want to work with a month of data, I can click in here and I can go back, click on a particular date to start, click on my date here to end. And now just that date range is now pulled in for me to work with. Now, once I've created the graph, I can obviously zoom in and zoom out of that data, but I am constrained to the amount of data that I've chosen to work with, but that does make everything a little faster, so we're not pulling down unnecessary data. As far as zooming function goes, I can use my scroll wheel. I've got some shortcuts up here at the top that I can select. I can zoom in a particular location. I can hit the minus icon to click to zoom out. And the reason why we need all these icons to click on and whatnot is because this thing is able to work off of your tablets and your phones and your portable devices, as well as your laptops and your desktops. So we need to have icons to be able to be pressable. So when you're in those screens where you don't necessarily have a keyboard or even a mouse, you have the ability to select those with your fingers. Along with that, we have the ability to set a home date. So if I'm moving around in data quite a bit, I can set that home date. And then if I'm someplace else, if I hit the home date, sorry, set the home date. And now if I'm someplace else, I can jump to that home date by clicking on that. It moves me back there. Up here in the left-hand corner, we've got export functions. Anything that's on the graph here, I can export as an image. I can put that into a Word document. I can also do a PDF. The PDF allows you to have a small report. It gives you a little synopsis of the graph that you've had, the table information, just right down here. So I have all my table information in that, as well as your min-max averages. So it's a small report that can be created. And then finally, the last one, you can export the data as a CSV. This allows you to open it in Excel or spreadsheets or import into other software packages. With these little icons over here on the right, as I showed you here, I can enable or disable my table. If I have the table enabled, I click somewhere on the graph, it does jump to that location that I've clicked to on the graph. And so that allows me to move around quickly with my data set. If I need more real estate, because I'm on a tablet as an example, if I click on these little icons over here, that gets rid of my table. This one gets rid of my date moving toolbar at the bottom here, so I can move around on my dates. Click on that, that gets rid of that. It gives me a little more real estate for those smaller screens. And finally, if I did want to change something here, I wanted to change a color, or I wanted to change my units of measure as an example, I can go right down here to edit graph, and it takes me back to my configure graph screen where I was before. And then of course I can go in here and change my units of measure if I want to change that, or my color, or whatever I see fit. So that allows me to basically just go back and forth between the actual graph, which is here, and the screen that helps me create the graph. As far as editing goes, which is our final point here, if I hit the edit button, you'll notice I got a bunch of editing tools that appear once I select that. By hitting the selection tool, now if I want to hit, let's see if I want to adjust level or velocity, let's go ahead and adjust velocity. So I'll select velocity here at the top. Once I do that, it now knows my selection tool is going to be working with the velocity. By highlighting the velocity, it shows some points, and now I can use my editing tools, everything from doing some autocorrect, proportional changes, I can shift data. And then of course I can always go back to my original by using the undo, or by selecting original data, I can always restore my original data. So those are the editing tools. And finally, we have our calculate data set screen. This screen allows us to do many functions on the data, manipulate, change. In this case, I can do statistical functions, math expressions, so min, max, averages for statistical functions. I can do time shift. Math expressions, I can add or subtract data from each other. On the domain functions, I've got a way I can create dry flow information for dry weather, and then put that into an INI mathematical function where it will create my INI information out of that flow data. And then finally, we have our coming soon area. This is the stuff that we are in the works to create and get released. And that's something I want to point out. The nice thing, again, that Rick mentioned in his portion was, because this is server-based, we don't have to have IT involved to do upgrades. In the past, anytime you have a software upgrade, you have to get them involved to remove the old software, to download the new software, to get it installed. Now, all that stuff's done at the server level. Basically, when the new stuff is put into place on the server end, the customer logs into the data, or into the site to see the data, and then that information that we've added to it, the bug fixes, functionality, they just show up. So we don't need to worry about uninstalling and reinstalling to get those features in place. They'll just show up one day, you log in, and they're already right there for you at your fingertips. I think that pretty much does it for this demonstration. And I want to thank you for giving us your time to show you what we got. You have a great day.